Sister Charlene Muhammad. She is the national, oh yes, go ahead and give her a round of applause. She is the national correspondent to the Final Call newspaper. She is the founder of Pumps on the Ground and covers a lot of issues dealing with women, such as domestic violence and sexual abuse, that a lot of times mainstream media does not cover. She is our media representative for the panel discussion. Let's give her a round of applause. And of course, you know our big brother, Derek Muhammad, who will be joining us to give us a male perspective on some of these issues, as well to speak a little bit further into surviving as a child, watching his mother encounter domestic violence. Let's give him another round of applause. Miss Kelly Sargent, she will be joining us on the panel. Let's give her a round of applause. We have Ms. Pamela Ellis. She is a representative for the Houston Area Women's Center. So she's going to give us a perspective of working at a shelter and actually doing some counseling for the women who have come in that have been abused and seeking assistance, seeking help, and a refuge. Next, we have Charissa Hall. She is a licensed professional counselor. Let's give her a round of applause. She's going to give us a perspective of the professional aspect in dealing with the stages that a person that has been abused can go through, as well as how to address those who want to support a victim or a survivor and what they can do as a group unit. So with that being said, told you about these interesting statistics. Oh, so for those in the audience who would like to ask a question to the panel, you have about 4 index cards in your registration bags and a pen. Feel free to write your question out and pass them toward, we have Andrea Berry here. She will take some of your questions, as well as Rashida Muhammad. She will take your questions as well. You can just pass them to the both of them. Again, if you are listening via All Real Radio and on Twitter, you can use the hashtag #2wisdom. So, there's only one rule for the panel discussion here. We can, keep our comments to about 60 seconds. So, the following questions are to aid the victims, the survivors, the supporters of both, as well as the general public, to answer some of the questions that sometimes a lot of us have when discussing domestic violence, sexual abuse, and also stalking abuse. So, yes. 1 out of 5 women, as Kelly said, will experience sexual assault. That's 1 woman every 2 minutes, 15 women per hour. 60% of cases are not reported. 97% of the offenders will never spend a day in jail. 2/3 of sexual assault and abuse cases are committed by those that the victim knows, such as a friend or acquaintance. So my question to the panel is that the women and girls aged 16 through 24 experience the highest level of intimate partner abuse. These are high school and college age girls. Why do you think that is in that particular age group? Sister Charlene, we can start with you.
Thank you. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. Sister Ebony, there are various factors, as we know, but a predominant one that I have discovered in my research and writing is the culture that says, through music, through writing, television, that it's okay. The language, hearkening to what Sister Kelly was saying when she decided that it was going to be there was going to be a change. What she listened to, there are elements outside of us that says it's okay, and in that age group, I mean, we're really trendy, and so certainly not to blame artists and not to blame our actors, but art does imitate life, or life imitates art.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. I would say that during the age of 16 to 24, particularly those mid-teen years, a young male and a young female are going through a stage of transition into adulthood that they themselves do not understand. And because they have not been properly taught how to protect themselves during that stage of transition, we make very, very critical mistakes. So I think it's incumbent upon parents and those of us who are stewards over our children's lives to make sure that we give them a foundation that they might understand what it is that they're going through. At that age, they're experimenting. Their bodies are going through hormonal changes that they don't understand. So it's almost like walking, trying to cross the street blindfold. At some point, you're going to mess around and get hit. So when you're going through that stage and you're blind to what it is that you're going through, very easy to make mistakes.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly Sargent.
I agree with both of them. I think it's the culture that they're accustomed to during this time. They're very impressionable, and it's glamorized to twerk, to use their bodies, to get attention. And I think that they're trying to search for their identity, which way they should go. And because it's glamorized in the media, they think that that's what they need to do. And like Brother Derek said, it's our responsibility and our job to let them know that what they see, you know the saying, do as I. They're impressionable. They do what they see and what they think is the right thing. And it's very unfortunate, so we have to let them know that there is another way.
I would agree with everybody. I said dating, who teaches us how to do it? And so if I have to figure it out, then I have to figure it out the way that I know how or the way that I've seen. And if I've seen anything inappropriate or that didn't feel good or unhealthy, then typically that's what I tend to be like as I grow. And so if I'm teaching myself, then I'm teaching myself the most unhealthy way because that's what I was taught.
So to kind of piggyback off of everyone else, I think education is key, and it starts at home. We live in a society now where parents are friends. You can't always be a girlfriend to your daughter. Can't always be a homeboy to your son.
Right.
You have to actually discipline and let them know you love them, because if you don't teach them that you love them, the streets will. And so I think that's why the age group we have does that, because they're not getting enough support starting at home, so they have to go to the environment to look for love elsewhere.
Yes, thank you all. So the next question is, when family and friends receive that notice of a sexual assault or abuse, how should they respond? The support the family member when receiving information like this, what's the best way to respond and a way that they may not need to respond? We can start with Ms. Pamela Ellis.
If I received a call from someone who had been sexually violated, my first mode of response would be to get all of the information and to first believe. It's imperative that we believe the survivor. Oftentimes we make the critical mistake of asking the why question. And I always say in counseling, why always says basically, I've done something to cause this to happen to me. So in counseling, I don't use the why at all. But I think we have to believe, we have to meet people where they are. We have to make sure that they're safe and they're healthy, which if it means going to the doctor, taking care of yourself, we have to start there. But validating feelings is probably one of the most important things that we can do for a survivor. Supporting them by believing and saying yes, 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 getting them medical attention, validation. Validation is key.
Brother Derek, as a male, you have 3 daughters. What is a good way for a father to receive that information?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I am the father of 3 daughters. And my worst nightmare is probably having to receive some information like that. I would say in general, the first thing that we should do is look carefully into it to make certain that what is being reported is true. There have been situations where such things have been reported and the reporter didn't understand the gravity of what it is that they were saying, and it was not true, to say it like that. But were my daughter to bring me such news, I would look into it, but of course I would be very inclined to believe it. The second thing that I think needs to be done is we have to make certain that we get the victim the proper help. I think that is very, very key. And I think that unfortunately in our community, that's something that we do not do. And as has been stated so often throughout this evening, we suffer in silence. And the third and final thing that I think that has to be accomplished is the principle of justice.
Yes, sir.
And I just end my answer right there.
Yeah. In your case, I'm sure the first time you opened up to your mother about it may not have been your first attempt. So how would you advise young girls in opening up about being sexually assaulted or abused? And what would you like, looking back now, what would you like to suggest to those that are being told this information as a survivor, how to receive it from someone who has suffered from assault?
How to receive it, I could think of 3 really good ways that would be helpful to the survivor. And the first thing is to listen. Listen to them and listen carefully. Hear them out, believe them, but most importantly, listen to everything. The second is 0 judgment. Imagine how hard it was for them to come to you. It took everything in them when they finally decided to do it. So to listen, 0 judgment, and finally with love. Love them enough to take action, to support them, hug them, and let them know that you got them, and that you're there for them, and that they're going to be okay, that you're going to help them.
Ma'am. Sister Charlene, would you like to comment?
I agree with everything they said, and I would like to reiterate what Brother Derek said, the principle of justice.
Oh, you need to-
It's very important.
Because you have a daughter,
Yes,
you know, as well, and as a mother,
yes.
you know, if she were to bring information like this to you, how do you believe that you would respond? Or how would you want to respond and say that?
I just have to be frank. I'll put it like this. As the sisters said, but it also in my household, if the person who, and it pans out to be the case,
Yes, ma'am.
violated my son or daughter, is not dealt with, then my husband would have to leave my house.
Absolutely.
So that's not the prettiest answer. But I believe that in my mind, in my soul and body, it's important for a survivor victim to know that they have value. And there are many different ways, but if a person can perpetrate a harm like that and nothing is done, and nothing could be whatever the justice means to the family involved in that, right? Kelly's mother called the cops. It's different for different people, but I just would not be settled in my spirit. And I don't believe that my daughter would. She is of me, and so that has to be brought to justice, whatever that means for anyone. But a man or a person or entity can't, walk around at peace, and my daughter is broken.
Absolutely.
And there be peace. Somebody had to ask me like that. But I agree with them.
Sure, would you like to comment on this?
The biggest things I would say is kind of what everyone else said, definitely not to blame. They already are taking a big step by opening up to you. So not blaming, to listen, and to think about if it was you.
Absolutely.
If this happened to you, would you want someone to say you're a liar? Would you want someone to say, really? Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. I'm telling you. So don't, like Ms. Ella said, don't invalidate feelings.
Thank you. So I want to say this FYI, one of my clients at Origins Massage Spa, she works for the police department, and she's a crime victim liaison. And I didn't know that they had this special unit within the police department. And so they take calls for domestic violence and sexual assault and stalking. So if ever you feel the resolve to call the police, please ask for that particular department, the crime victim liaison, and they'll give you resources that a lot of times is not put out in the open, financial resources, clothes, food, shelter, and it's all free to the public. So the next question is, what form of support is available for the supporters of the victim? Because when you impart information like that, a person comes and says, you know, I've been assaulted, you know, it becomes a healing process that's needed for the support team as well. So what is the best way, or what are some stages or some strategies to not only help the victim, but the family of the victim or the friends of the victim to be a better support? We'll start with Ms. Ellis.
Okay. So at the Houston Area Women's Center, we have all types of support groups. And we have a friends and family member group, which teaches the supporters of the survivor how to work with the survivor. And so when they're frustrated or when they don't see things changing the way that they feel like as fast as it should be changing, we provide additional support to them so that they can kind of understand it better. I know oftentimes when survivors are hurt, you know, the first reference is shock. You know, this didn't happen, and denial. So you go through this entire grief process. And once you come out of it, people think, okay, now you should be ready to go. And basically that doesn't happen. So we have a support group that will actually help you help the survivor to get through, you know, those traumatic times.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Brother Derek, you assist different families with multiple levels of injustice. How have you been able to be a support for them, to be a support to whomever may have suffered that injustice, whether it be police brutality or something of, you know, sexual abuse or domestic abuse nature?
Well, the role that I play is first and foremost being that of a listening ear. I believe that it's imperative that people who are trying to support a loved one who has been dealt with unjustly, it's important that they have somebody to listen to. If your child comes to you and tell you that she's been sexually assaulted, oftentimes there's a heavy burden of guilt that's placed on the parent, because the parent is always saying, man, I work too much, trying to make money, trying to pay the bills, and I left her alone. So they begin to look at themselves as if though they were the cause of the sexual assault or whatever injustice that there is. So I try to listen. I try to reassure them that it is not their fault, because in most cases it is not. And it goes back to the principle of justice, because that's my job. I try to make certain that I get justice for the aggrieved family and for the victim. Now, why is that so important? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that justice is a part of the healing process. So if a man rapes a woman, and that woman has to go on about her life, but she knows that this man is still somewhere, not only did he not pay for what it is that he did to her, he's free to do it to other people. And unfortunately, we live in a society where the laws are just not strong enough when it comes to the abuse of women, the rape of women, domestic violence, where as it relates to women, the laws are just not strong enough. So we cannot get away from the principle of justice for many reasons. Number one, for the healing of the victim, the healing of the family, and for the good of the society and the safety of the community.
Kelly, what did you and your family experience after you opened up about your experience with abuse? What were those steps after calling the police? Then how did your family begin that healing process?
We were in therapy, family therapy. that was the very beginning, and, you know, it was my mother's second marriage. It was the love of her life, her restart. So unfortunately, she had just had a baby. The baby was a few months old. It totally ripped her world apart, having an infant and immediately becoming a single parent, like instantly. It was really rough. It was just hard for my mother, but thank God she saved me. So we had to, like I said, it was really hard. She wasn't working. She had a brand new baby. We were living on government assistance, and we were in a different state. So we had no family in that state. Eventually, she managed to get the money from different nonprofit organizations that came to help us and flew us, the family, back to the town, the city that I was raised in, which is Hartford, Connecticut. And we started over with lots of help from family that helped, that were trying to get us back on our feet, a place to live, helped her find another job. We had a brand new start, thank God.
And Teresa, how your services with Positive Fruit, how are you constructing your sessions to not only address what the victim is experiencing, but then also to help their family and friends?
Well, I think that it's kind of like other issues. It's not just the one person who's affected by it, so you have to work with everyone. I'm team therapy all day, not just because I do it, but because if you're open to it, it works. It makes such a difference. Being with someone who can't judge you, who doesn't know your background, who doesn't know anything about you. We can't hold anything against you as therapists. When you come to us however you are, and we take you however you are. And sometimes it's just being able to talk things out loud. So if you don't have the family support, if you don't have a faith circle or church support, some local supports, try therapy. There's somebody, it's kind of like trying on shoes. Every therapist doesn't work for everyone, but that's okay. Somebody will, and it's important that you speak to someone. So we cater to whoever needs the support.
Thank you. Charlene, would you like to comment? I'm sorry? Would you like to comment? So, all right, that's $1 million question I'm sure the general public may ask. It's said by the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape that it's common for victims to continue a relationship with the offender. And it says that some of the reasons for this could be so that the victim feel a sense of control, normality, and sometimes the offenders use this to trap the victim to protect himself. So what would you say to someone who has been abused in a way to encourage them and empower them that they don't have to continue on in a relationship that is abusive? If these are some of the reasons why they stay, how would you empower them that they can let go and walk away? Ms. Charlene, we can start with you.
I think I would like to do, I know what I would do if it was my daughter, but I would like to let one of the counselors that are more qualified answer. I know what I would do, but I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. I think I should intelligently let the counselor.
All right, Ms. Ellen.
So your question was very long.
Okay,
I'm
I'm
going to take it in parts. I think with the first part, and I get this a lot, I think I was sharing with you earlier, most people who abuse are people that you know, love, and trust. So you have a relationship with them. I've had clients who say to me, you know, this was my father, this was my uncle, this was my brother, and why do I still love them? And one of the things that I have to say to my clients is that it's separated. I love you, the person, as the label in my life, my dad, my father, my brother. I don't like what you did to me, which is a behavior. So I can still love you, and I think a lot of times, especially in sexual abuse, people get very confused. It's like, why do I still feel this way about this person, and he hurt me, or she hurt me? And the difference is that you love the person, you don't like the behavior, which is what that person did to you. That's the first part of your question I came to.
Oh, okay. So what would you say in regard, well, I mean, you pretty much answered it.
Okay.
But,
Love answer.
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We'll go to Teresa.
There you go.
So I think, first off, we can't tell anyone what to do. At the end of the day, you have to want to leave. You have to want to go. But what I can do is encourage you to know what love really looks like.
Right.
Because a lot of my clients will say, I'm going to stay for the kids. He's the income person. I don't have the money. Where there's a will, there's a way. There are so many agencies in this city who, if you come to them and tell your situation, they will help you. And staying for your children, if your children are hearing you get slammed against walls and hearing yelling and screaming, you are not helping your children. You are helping to build another cycle of abuse, because when they grow up, they're going to think that that was normal. So don't stay because of your kids. So I encourage you to know what healthy love looks like. Healthy love was not created to hurt. It wasn't created to degrade. It wasn't created to make you feel less than. You were created by someone who said you are already wonderful.
Right.
So if you're created by someone who says you're great, why are you letting man treat you less than that?
Right.
So that's where I would start.
Yeah.
You wanna weigh in?
I did. And the different reasons people stay are definitely their own, as Teresa said, but I bring to mind a case in California right now. There were children, I think 8 and 11 or 8 and 12, but the father and the mother were having domestic violence issues, and he, initially they thought it was an accident, but he had them for a visit and ran their BMW into the back of an 18-wheeler and killed them. Literally, the car went under the big truck. And investigators said at first they thought it was an accident, but he had to maneuver the car in different places, and they're looking at it as a murder-suicide. You know, so as people stay in these situations, anything could happen. Anything could happen. But she's right, you know, people have to be ready and have to want to leave. And a lot of times with the abuse, a lot of it starts psychologically first. That's why I could appreciate so much what JJ was saying. And once you can break a person down like that, you can pretty much do anything. And one of the things that we find a lot, and I hear interviewees a lot in the cases that I cover say, is, he told me no one would ever want me. He told me I was ugly and I didn't have anywhere to go. And by the time some of the abuse starts, the person has been able to isolate the entire family. That pretty much says, okay, I give up on you. You keep going back, I give up. And the cycle can continue. Thanks for letting me comment.
Yeah. Brother Derek, would you like to comment?
Yes, the word that comes to mind is pre-existing conditions. When you go to get your health insurance, the first thing they ask you is, do you have any pre-existing conditions? Because if you have pre-existing conditions and some illness should befall you, then we'll be responsible for what it is that takes place. Oftentimes, when women find themselves, girls find themselves in abusive relationships and they usually stay because that relationship provides something for them that they did not get from their father, mother, etc., etc. And it's like weighing the greater of the two. He may slap you today, but tomorrow he may tell you he loves you. The I love you weighs so much more than the slap, because you didn't get that when you were a child, that you just stick around for the I loves you and you take the slaps as they come, unfortunately. As it relates to the subject of rape, I think sometimes we have blurred lines as to what rape really is, male and female. So sometimes those blurred lines cause us to not recognize it when it actually happens. The third thing I would do if I was actually talking to a young lady and she was in a situation like this, the first thing I would do was point to an example. Just last week, a young brother by the name of Earl Hayes, he was a rap artist and he was part of Floyd Mayweather's Money Team. He and his wife, who was a reality television star, Stephanie, I can't think of her last name, rest her soul, they were going through a divorce, I believe. And according to what has been reported, he was told that she was being unfaithful to him. So he called Floyd Mayweather on his phone, on FaceTime. And he was talking to his friend, man, I can't believe she did this, man, I can't believe she did this. So the boxer, Floyd Mayweather, was trying to talk him down. Hey, it's going to be okay. And while he had him on FaceTime, he heard the gunshots. He went over and he killed his wife. And then he turned the gun on himself. So you had a murder-suicide in these posh high-rise hotels in Los Angeles, which lets you know that this thing is not associated with class. It happens in all kind of neighborhoods and communities. So what I would try to do if I were counseling a young woman who was in a situation like this, I would try to point to her several examples and hope that those examples would, prick her consciousness and try to wake her up. And the last thing I would do is try to encourage her to seek a relationship with, if she did not already have one, but a relationship with God. And no matter what your circumstances are, I don't care if you're saying you're staying for the finance. I don't care if you're staying for the self-validation. I don't care if you're staying for the children. Whatever reason you give to stay in a situation like that, your faith in God, if strong enough, can see you through if you walk away. That's the way I would address that.
Thank you. Kelly, would you like to comment?
No, they've covered it all.
All right. Yes, ma'am. The next question I want to ask, and Sister Charlene, we can start with you in regards to the media. Why does society tend to blame the victim
Thank you.
when they are the victim? Here.
It's easy. It's easy and it's learned. I mean, it happens in the courts of law. What do we see with a lot of the police brutality cases and even rape cases that are publicized? The victim's record, manufactured or true, comes out. You rarely hear anything about the perpetrator, but it's easier to do. Sister said it, one of the counsel, Sister Pam said, I think it's the why. She never asked the why. And a lot of times when these things, when aberrations happen, people always want to know why. What were you, the water spilled, why? Why were you near the table? And that's part of the problem.
Charissa.
I agree with Ms. Charlene that media takes the easy route. And then also I think, like she said, it's easier and it's more familiar. And we tend to go with what's more familiar. Half of the perpetrators are people we know. We like them. We liked OJ. He seemed like a nice guy. We liked Ray Rice. He seems like a nice guy. So we don't want to blame these people that we've come to admire, that we've come to adore, that we sponsor and give money to. But I think that once we start holding them accountable more, then we won't blame victims so much. We will make them accountable and hold them to where they need to be.
Thank you, Ms. Pamela.
I think also society plays a huge part because society oftentimes dictate what we as women should look like, how we as women should act. And I say to the clients that I work with every day, society changes every day, and so who are they to tell me what I'm supposed to look like, be like, act like? And I think a lot of times with society, when they place all of these stipulations on us, oftentimes we try to live up to it, unfortunately. But I think that when we decide as a people, man and woman, when we decide that we are not going to allow society to dictate what we do in the sense of how we're going to be treated, then things will change for us. Because I think the biggest question is, what did you wear? Like, we hear that a lot with sexual assault. And I say all the time, clothes don't ever rape people. Rapists rape people. Drugs doesn't rape people. Rapists rape people. And so we tend to use excuses a lot as, oh, well, he was just drunk, or she was just drunk, or they were just, no, they're just rapists, and they're just batterers. So none of those things, the excuses that they give, works for me. Because people who get drunk and use drugs, sometimes they just laugh themselves to sleep.
Right.
If you're a rapist or if you're a batterer, then that's what you do. But until we decide and to hold people accountable for what they're actually doing to us, then this trend will continue and continue and continue until we decide, enough is enough.
Ms. Kelly Sargent. Now, have you experienced that being blamed? And if so, what were those reasons? What did they say to you if they came across as being, blaming you as the victim of being abused? Because as you shared with Sister Charlene on her show, there were multiple accounts of abuse that you've experienced through your life. So with any of those, did you ever get that blame? And then what was it that they were blaming you as a victim?
I was only blamed once, and unfortunately, it was from my mother. It was later during our recovery process. She was having a very difficult time, her life being snatched and stolen away from her. So as I grew older as a teenager, I acted out because of what I suffered, long journey trying to find myself. So I didn't have the best behavior, so at one point she said, "You provoked it." Eventually, that all changed, but that was the first time I was blamed. At 8 years old, like Pamela just said, we can't provoke anything. It's totally, me and my nightgown and my underwear that was covered by my nightgown, that night that he called me into the bedroom, I didn't provoke, I was asleep, I didn't provoke anything. So that was the only time I was blamed, and we have since gotten past that.
Okay, because that was going to be my next question.
Oh, yes.
Brother Derek, what are your thoughts on why society finds it very easy to blame the victim?
Well, as it relates to the media, I think just cut and dry, I would have to say that most media outlets are whores for ratings anyway. So not only will they blame the victim, they'll blame the perpetrator, then they'll blame the victim again. They'll go back and forth, whatever it takes just to keep you watching whatever soap opera. The media, unfortunately, controls the minds of the masses of the people. And they keep us on an emotional roller coaster, particularly dealing with cases that have not even gone to trial. In America, they say that you're innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. But in the court of public opinion, it just depends on what day it is with the media. So the media's ambition is never to search out truth and report it. The media's ambition is to find the sensationalism in the story, report that, keep you watching, keep you on the hook. And whoever is victimized in the process, they could care less as long as they make a profit. That's the society that we live in, the media that controls our minds.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you all. So, for the young girls and boys who are approached, as Sister Kelly described, can you keep a secret? Or things like that where they use their authoritative position to influence a child. How would you empower a child to protect themselves when they're approached by a parent, a family member, a friend of the family? How would you empower them as children to protect themselves if their family member or their mother or father are not present? Yes, Brother Derek.
I think the first thing we have to do is control your child's environment as much as you can while you can. Control their environment as much as you can while you can. There will be a point in time where they come of age where it's more difficult. But when you're 4, 5, 6 years old, you go where I tell you to go. When you're 4, 5, 6 years old. That means that you have to be very, very careful who you leave your children with. I say it like this: if I trust you with my children, then I trust you with my life. If I don't trust you with my life, you are not going to keep my children under any circumstances. If you leave them alone with someone that you don't trust 1,000%, then anything could happen. and something could happen that will affect them for the rest of their lives. Number two, you teach your child the importance of, what do they call it, body space? Boundaries, thank you. Personal boundaries. You talk to your child about how nobody is to touch you in a certain space. I have 3 daughters. By the grace of God, I can actually say that I've never bathed any of my daughters.
That's right.
I've never changed any of their diapers. By the grace of God, I can say that. This is the way that we're taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I stick to it because I want to be able to say to them that if your father has never seen you disrobed,
Right.
then no other man who has not taken total responsibility for your life dare not to see you disrobed. That's just the precedence that I set with my daughters, and other people may do it a different way. And the last thing I want to say is you got to teach them how to fight.
Right.
You teach them how to fight. Teach your children how to physically fight. So that if somebody comes to try to violate them, they got hell and high water on their hands when they run up on your child. Teach them babies how to fight.
And with that being said, we do have a giveaway for Brother William Solomon of Solomon's Temple of Martial Arts for a lucky winner to receive a free personal training in self-defense, yourself or your child. So we will be giving that away momentarily. So, Kelly, you are a mother. How will you, how have you empowered your children to protect themselves?
Well, being a victim, I had the conversation. You have to have the conversation. Because what happened to me, I would never want to happen to my little girls. So no matter how difficult you think the conversation is going to be, it's one that you absolutely must have to save your child. And you tell your child what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And of course, to have self-respect. Teach them and tell them how to value themselves so they're not disrespected by these little boys in the street. You can't treat me that way. Do you know who I am? The value that they have to value themselves at a very young age. We have to teach our children about value, self-worth, and self-respect. So if anybody steps to them, they know how to respond to something inappropriate. And because you had that conversation, that open conversation early, it'd be easy for her to come to you. Mommy, you know how we talked about this? Can you believe this dude did this? And this is what I told him.
Right.
High five, girl.
Sister Charlene, your son and your daughter, how would you suggest parents empower their children?
I'm different. I don't know if they want to be like me, but I use this. Was it you, sister said, examples, Brother Derek said. So the many articles I write and where survivors welcome me into their lives, their personal space, I tell them, read this. This happened this year, whatever year it happened, read what happened, how they did it, and then I tell them, if they threaten you that they're going to hurt mom and dad, well, then we're hurt because you go down fighting.
That's right.
You let no one take it. And she's right. You have to have the hard conversation and question. So our children grow up pretty, I don't even know, Michael Jackson said he didn't have a childhood. I question theirs because they get it right off the pages of the Final Call. And we talk about it. And absolutely, the fighting defense. But I pretty much talk straight words to them. We don't lie to them. We don't have the Santa Claus question, and we don't have the question that everybody is your friend, and we don't have the conversation that you need to respect every adult.
That's right.
And that's hard coming up in the South. My mother's right there, and she didn't raise me that way. But life taught me, that I can't have my children just willy-nilly respecting every adult, because that's the one that will come to kill them.
Say that.
And I tell them every day. So I don't know that that's right for everybody, but, you know, God bless the child. You know, that's what I teach them.
Ms. Pamela L.
I agree with the open conversation about abuse. I also think it's how you relate that information to a child, because no matter how much we say to a child, I'm here for you, and if this should happen to you, I will do this, this, and this, that child would hear that this, and this, which is probably the side that, you know, in that child's mind, they're basically saying, I'm not going to say anything because mommy or daddy is going to be hurt. And so we have to be careful how we relay the information. Of course, we know maybe what we'll do, but we definitely have to be careful how to relay that information to a child, because a child, they don't want mom and dad hurt, you know, and they will be quiet. They will silence themselves, because even though mom and dad is bigger and badder and all of that, kids don't see it that way. Most kids don't see it that way. So typically, they will not say anything according to what type of conversation we have with them.
Thank you. Ms. Tressa Hall?
I would just ask that, or add that I would just let children know it's okay to tell your truth. And if mommy doesn't listen, if daddy doesn't listen, somebody will listen. Unfortunately, sometimes your parents won't believe you. But you don't stop there. Just like when we go to the store and something's not right and the cashier won't help us, the first thing we do is ask for a manager. Tell your children, if mommy's too busy, if she's doing dishes, go tell neighbor Charlene, go tell neighbor someone else. They don't have to stay silent just because the first person they come in contact with doesn't listen to them.
That's right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So at the conclusion of this particular subject of sexual assault and abuse, I wanted to inform everyone of a particular app that I found called Circle of Six. And so it allows you to choose 6 trusted friends to add to your circle on your cell phone. And if you get into an uncomfortable situation, you can use the app. It'll automatically send a text message, a phone call to those particular individuals, and it'll give your exact location. So you don't have to say anything over the phone. You have these pre-programmed text messages, and then the GPS from your phone will let them know exactly where you are, and to inform them that they're part of this Circle of Six too. So when they receive something like this, they'll know that this is a serious and critical situation. You know where they are, and you can go to their aid. So this particular app is called Circle of Six. So with this next portion, dealing with domestic violence and abuse. Again, 1 out of 5 women will experience domestic violence. 3 women are murdered every day behind domestic violence. A woman is beaten every 9 seconds. About 6 women every minute. And women, again, ages 16 through 24, experience the highest level of intimate partner abuse. Brother Derek, you mentioned you witnessed your mother experiencing domestic violence. As a child, now an adult, looking back, how do you see that affected you then? And have there been anything that came up later on in life as a result of witnessing your mother being abused?
Yes, I witnessed my mother abused several times. Sometimes I actually witnessed the actual abuse, and other times I witnessed the damage that it did. I remember once I was at my grandmother's during the summer, and I had not seen my mom in several weeks, and I didn't understand why I had not gone home. So when I finally went home, I was just anxious to see my mother. And my mother had been in the hospital. She had been beaten so bad by her current significant other. And when she opened the door, I remember looking past my mother, looking for my mother, because that is how different she looked afterward. the way that it made me feel, most children probably feel helpless, but I really didn't feel helpless. As a matter of fact, I used to come and physically defend my mom whenever she was in a situation like that. How it has affected me as an adult, the only thing I can think of is that it made me to never want to be in that situation again. So I believe that the impact that it had on me is that never put your hands on a woman, which by the grace of God, I never have done. It's just not a part of me, but I think that I was able to turn that negative into a positive and display throughout my behavior my disdain for what happened to my mother by the way that I treat other women. I believe that that would probably be the most accurate answer.
We can give him a hand clap for that. Absolutely. So I've received a couple of questions. How can, one of the attendees asked, how can I get past all of the pain and hurt of my past, being a drug addict and prostitute? Is there any man who will truly love someone like me?
There already is a man who loves someone like you.
All right. Talk
And
about
he
it.
may not be in physical place right now, but God loves you first and foremost. And his love is the best love to have because it's truly unconditional. Man puts limits on love. I like you until you gain weight. I like you until you cut your hair. I like you until you have 6 kids for me. So first, I think it starts with knowing that there is someone who already loves you. And if you know that, then you know that God has something, someone for you. It may not always be the form of a relationship. I think a lot of times we don't like to be alone. So we'll take a piece of a man. You don't need a piece of a man. You were created by someone who already knew your purpose and your passion. Don't settle. Don't settle. Be patient and wait. As hard as it is, and I know it's hard because I was single for a very long time. Sweet Jesus. It was hard. It was so hard. But in that time that I was by myself, I learned myself. Because I didn't know who I was. Jumping from relationship to relationship. I was whoever it was for that week, that month. But being by myself, I had to explore myself. I had to date me. And now I'm a firm believer in me time. I probably abuse it. Put yourself first. The man will come.
Absolutely.
Your life is only once. So you put your life in somebody's hands who takes it, you have nothing. You put your life in somebody's hands who already has you covered, you've got everything to gain from that.
I know as one who's married too, it's easy to say wait, but it is definitely good counsel because in the process of healing, I think one of the main things to do is when the mate finally comes, to be transparent and honest and let them know what happened, because otherwise, and Kelly, you could please, if you don't mind, elaborate, then that could damage the relationship too,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I think that first and foremost, the first thing you have to do is forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself. And, don't stop blaming yourself. Stop beating yourself up.
Yes.
You have the ability to renew your mind.
Absolutely.
You have to fall in love with the new you.
Yes, ma'am.
And start to respect yourself. And then when you respect yourself and stop blaming yourself and loving yourself, you can have a conversation with zero shame.
Right.
That's
And
right.
you can say to him, you want to be open and honest, and you start off with a friendship anyway. You're not just jumping into a relationship,
Right.
but you want to start your friendship with being honest. This is who I was. Share your testimony.
That's right.
This is where you were, but
Right.
here you are now. And recognize how beautiful you are from the inside out. And that began with acknowledging it's not who you are
That's right.
anymore. And start acknowledging everything that you were created to be, that God created you to be. Each of us was gifted with a God-given purpose, a gift. Recognize that. See yourself as the beautiful person that you are. Respect and love yourself. That's where it begins. Forgive yourself. Get to know the new you, create the new you, build the new you, love the new you, and he will be able to love you back.
Yes, whoever it is who's talking about addiction, I think we have to pay attention to that. Because oftentimes we get out of one relationship, run into another because of addictions. And we get into addictions just, it doesn't have to be substance, it could be relationship addictions. And so I think a lot of times negative behavior attracts negative behavior. And so when we're running from substance abuse to relationships because we don't want to be alone, I think, like they're saying, the most important thing is to find yourself. And you're running out of one relationship, and I always use this that song Erykah Badu, Bag Lady, because when you have so much baggage that you're bringing to a relationship, and trust me, there's nobody who can come to me who's unhealthy that's going to be attractive to me. Because if you're coming to me and you're saying, well, I slang a little dope here and there, no, because that's not where I am today. So that negative, it's almost like a magnet. Like if you put a magnet together, it's going to go together. But if you turn a magnet around, it will never ever come together. So negative behavior plus positive behavior, it's not going to work. So I think when you understand that you have to release the baggage in your own life in order to become healthy in a relationship, you're just going to bring or continue to bring more baggage to that relationship, and it's never ever going to work. It's never going to work until you decide to get healthy. And I'm telling you all, we all are some beautiful people in this room. And until you decide to look at yourself in that positive manner, you're going to still be running from yourself. And how is it that you run from yourself wanting to run to somebody else? Love you. It may be hard to look in this mirror of self, but you have to do the work. You have to put in the work in order to get something out of it. And until you decide to put in the work, you're going to still get what you get.
Anyone else? Brother David?
Yes, I would say to the sister who sent up the question to first and foremost be encouraged, number one. Number two, there is someone out there for you. And 9 times out of 10, their life has probably not been a bed of roses either.
Right.
Young people sometimes, they baffle me. They're very interesting. Not that I'm not young, but I think y'all feel it. But I tell people all the time, the reason our young people wear tattoos and they wear gold teeth and they wear their hair all kind of crazy ways and they let their pants sag off their behinds is because in truth, that is a filter. That's a filter. If you say that you love me and you want to reach me, if that is what stops you, then you are not true in the first place.
Wow.
So many of our clergy drive right by our people simply because of the way that they look, not thinking about the value that God has placed on the inside of the individual. But if somebody truly wants to get to them, they'll look beyond what's on the surface and they'll get right to the heart of what it is that they want to speak to them about. I say that in essence is the blessing of having a checkered past in a sense. A man who truly loves you will want to be with you for who you are in the present, not for who you were in the past.
Right.
So if he decides that he's going to reject you for what you did in the past, then count that as a blessing because that man is not the man for you anyway. Not the man for you anyway. The last point I'll make is the scripture says that he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. And you may have your sins. And you could go out there and meet somebody who ain't got none. I want you to bring them to me. And I think this is what's most hypocritical about domestic violence. They say, he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. So a man says, my woman has done something to displease me. And see, the thing about the fish, it reminds me of a stone. You turn your hand into a stone, and then you cast it as if though you yourself don't have some cleaning up to do in some area of your life.
Come on.
The last thing I want to say is you have to have faith in God. And I know it may sound cliche to some, but it is truly the key of overcoming all obstacles. God promises us in Scripture that He would throw our sins in the sea of forgetfulness. So if you focus on yourself and focus on God and focus on becoming who you were born to be, that man, when he meets you, he ain't going to know that you used to be a prostitute. As a matter of fact, God will work such a wonder in your life that if you told him, he probably wouldn't even believe. Be encouraged.
Any other comments to that particular question? Okay. Well, I had another question that came through, but actually spoke to the one that I'm getting ready to ask, so hopefully you'll answer it. I don't know if any of you have read the interview with Janae Rice recently, where she went into details about the situation that happened in the elevator. One of the things that stood out to me was that she said things such as, it was the first time, we were drinking, he was in tears, but it boiled down to a particular statement where she said she didn't consider herself to be a victim. And so I wanted to ask, why would she and possibly other women find it very difficult to consider themselves or to see themselves as victims of domestic violence when we see this video of a clear form of abuse? Everybody's thinking. Okay, this is Charlotte.
Well, our beautiful sister's not here, but JJ said it. Jillian said it. I'm not supposed to be in this situation. I know better.
Right.
You know, all eyes were on, and maybe some still are, thanks to TMZ, all eyes are on them. You have these rich, semi-rich, powerful people. All this scrutiny is on her. It's an embarrassing situation, but the fault is not hers. She didn't strike herself. She didn't drag herself. But yeah, sister said it. You know, you're supposed to be in the know. How could you let this happen? And so there's the denial factor in domestic violence and abuse is very, 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 very dangerous. Because, as everyone said, in order to even begin to heal, you have to admit. So,
Anyone else?
I think denial could have set in. But I also think that when we understand the power and control of domestic violence and how it starts, when you look at domestic violence as the different phases that it comes in, which is the tension building phase, you know, all of those things come to play a part. Whether you recognize it or not, they're there. I personally don't believe that someone who's never abused will just come out hitting, because that's not the first stage of it. I have to build you up to know that I can get there to do it. And so oftentimes when we have survivors of domestic violence and they say, well, no, this is the first time, you know, I would probe more into that to get them to see, or to see if they understand what is the cycle of violence, because it comes in those phases where the tension is first, and you know, it's the belittling and the degrading and all of that, and then the actual physical part of that stage hits. And then there's that makeup phase that says, I'm sorry, but had you not done this, I wouldn't have done that, which still says you're not taking accountability for what you've done. But I think a lot of times, and then of course, I can't even say if it were me, the media glamorizes so much stuff or puts African Americans in the media.
right.
So when you put my husband in the media, who is, you know, taking care of me quite well, it would be a challenge for me to say, well, you know, because it's hard. He's already been scrutinized by the media. He's already been scrutinized by all of these, you know, all of this other baggage. But would I put him out there? I don't know. I honestly can't say that I would, because the media has already degraded him as well, as a black man. Not that it's right, I dare not tell you, because abuse is wrong. I don't care how you look at it and who is doing it. But I think a lot of times we as women hold that peace because of our black men who's already gone through systems, and it's more difficult.
I applaud my sister's honesty. She took the thought right out of my big head. Just because she said that in an interview doesn't necessarily mean that's really how she feels.
Right.
You know, if I and my girlfriend, if I don't have no girlfriend, I got a wife. But give me a scenario, if I and my girlfriend were riding in a car and I got pulled over and there were drugs in the car. And I said, yo, they're not mine. And she said, well, yeah, they're not his, they're his cousins or whatever. But when they put her on the stand, more than likely she'll lie for me because she's trying to protect me.
Right.
So I believe the entire circus that is the Ray Rice scenario is just what it is. It's just a circus. And she may, I don't know because I don't have all the facts, she may very well be just saying what she's saying in order to protect his image. Because the protection of his image represents the protection of her family and probably her assets as well.
Right.
But I will make a point. When my mother spoke earlier, she talked about why it is she stayed with her abusive boyfriend. It was because at the time, she was a drug addict and he was her dealer. So there was some incentive beyond the abuse in order to stay in that particular relationship. There may be some incentive for this particular sister to stay. I'm not saying that she should leave. Every situation is different. I do not know their business. That's basically what I'm saying, so it's difficult to speak on it. But sometimes women stay in relationships like that because there's an addictive quality to the relationship. Don't have to be drugs. It could be something else that you're addicted to that makes you to look beyond the abuse. And if you can tell yourself and make yourself believe, I am not a victim, then it makes it easier for you to stick around.
Anyone else like to comment? Sure.
I would just say that change is difficult, and not justifying her staying by any means, but everybody has a different bottom. Everybody has a different limit they have to reach. In her mind, if she says that that was the first time he co-copped her or whatever, okay. Because I do believe that abuse starts slow. And so maybe she thinks that her relationship is healthy now because he did say, I'm sorry, because he did provide a nice gift or whatever he did behind closed doors to make it okay. But we have to remember change is hard. We don't like change sometimes for normal stuff. When our job wants to change, we get upset. And what? So we have to understand that change is difficult and everybody's bottom is different. I pray that her bottom comes sooner than later so she can understand that that's not a healthy relationship. But knowing what a healthy relationship looks like, as repetitive as it sounds, is so true. Because then you know that you don't deserve to get knocked out in the elevator. You know that you don't have to protect someone who's hurting you. You don't have to do that. Your truth is your power. So, that's it.
You know, you actually went into one of the questions that was sent up. It was for you, Ms. Teresa Hall. Could you elaborate on what healthy love is? What does it look like? And I will open that up to the rest of the panel as well.
I go by 1 Corinthians 13. That love is patient. That love is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not text you every 10 minutes and ask you when you are coming home. I'm driving from the store to home. It's a 20-minute drive. The first text was good enough. I'm going to wreck. We don't think about that kind of stuff. We think that's cute. Girl, he texted me every 5. No, lies. That's not cute. Love does not make you isolate from your family. Love does not tell you you're not worth anything. If anything, love builds you up.
Right.
It's not tearing you down. And so I think those are some of the main components. I can talk forever about what I think healthy love is, but those are some of the main components. Start with 1 Corinthians 13. If you're not a believer, think about the people in your life, the relationships that you see. If you've had a healthy family relationship, whether you're an addict, prostitute, stripper, have they ever turned you away? Because love doesn't put limits on what you do. And love can separate the person from the behavior. Love can do that. Now, there's tough love. Sometimes we need boundaries. I'm not going to enable your addiction, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. So those are some of the places to start.
Anyone else like to answer that question? What does healthy love look like? Yes, sir, Brother Derek.
I would just say, what a beautiful answer. She answered the question for me with the reference to 1 Corinthians. Beautiful. The only thing that I would add to that is that healthy love is when you treat somebody the way you want to be treated,
Yeah.
and when that person treats you the way they want to be treated.
Yeah.
That's healthy love.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to answer that?
I'm just gonna throw this out, and it's gonna put probably a spin. Because when we're talking about healthy love, sometimes I ask my clients a lot, do you all believe in love at first sight? And many of them say yes. And I said, well, what does it look like? And then they can't answer. Because, if I think a lot of times we fall in lust versus love. And so I fall in love with what I see. I know he got a six-pack, he's sexy, he's all of that. That's what I fall in love with. And so I think a lot of times when you're saying, the 1 Corinthians, I believe in all of that. When you're saying treat people how you want to be treated, if I don't know what love is, then typically I may do that because I don't know what it is. And so if I'm not healthy with love, then maybe I am treating you how I want to be treated,
Right.
which still means nothing. It's still, people say love doesn't hurt. I disagree.
Right.
Love doesn't intentionally hurt. So to the fact that you're hurting me or you're just poking me just because you want to do it. If you're poking me to change my behavior for the better, that's another thing. It's still going to hurt.
Right.
But it's one of those hurts that says this is for your good.
Right.
Not I'm hurting you just because I can.
Right.
Right? So love is love, and I think she did a fabulous job. I was like, checkmate, I have to say nothing.
You know what I like to add to, that what you said just sparked a thought where if a person knows your emotional buttons, if they love you, they're not going to push them.
Right.
I think a lot of times we use the knowledge that we have about a person and we know how to get under their skin. We'll do that if we really don't love them and we're trying to control them, and inflict some type of unwanted power.
We have a saying in treatment that says hurt people or hurting people hurt people. So simple, it means a whole lot. Misery loves company, in other words.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in a tape, Love and Duty, love is life. You interchange the O and the I. You have love, and you put an I, you have life. And so healthy love is healthy life. And if you have someone that's doing things, including ourselves, that's harmful to us, again, man, the speakers were so great today. I'm sorry. Because I keep drawing on the references. Jillian was talking about the eggs and the, eggs and orange juice. But yet this is someone who loves her. That's physically destroying her life. And so that's a good reference and starting point that I like to use.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Yes, sir.
If I could, I would like to maybe add a little balance to it, because love is a word that's probably, talking about domestic abuse, that's a word that we tend to really abuse. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I believe, he gave the best definition of love. He said love is freedom, justice, and equality. When you won't deny a person their freedom, and you're willing to always give them justice and treat them as you want to be treated equally, then that's a good sign of love. But it doesn't mean that the person who says they love you won't make mistakes. There's a song that they sing in the church. They say that he looked beyond my faults and saw my needs. If any of us think that we can go out and get into a relationship, and as my sister said, not be hurt by the other person's shortcomings, then we just dreaming. We just dreaming. But whether the person really loves you is something that I believe is proven over time. It's not something that you can recognize right then and there. So I don't want anyone out here who may be in a relationship and they go home from the conference and they talk to their significant other, and the significant other, does something that's like, you know what, you don't love me. Not necessarily so. We all bring baggage into a relationship. I'm not telling you whether to stay or go. I'm just saying, if you're looking for it to be perfect, then it ain't gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. I just wanted to add that little bit of balance if y'all don't mind.
Thank you. So another app that I found is called Emotional Manipulation. The best $2.99 I have spent. This app, it gives so much information and details about how a person can inflict emotional manipulation on another person, different tactics, and how they work. That it may be difficult to see right off, but it gives you the details on what an abuser looks like from an emotional manipulative standpoint. And it's called simply Emotional Manipulation. $2.99. So this last portion that we're going to go into is stalking abuse. 1 in 5 women have been victims of stalking, or over 19 million women are stalked each year. 81% of women who are stalked, they are stalked by an abusive partner. In the state of Texas, stalking is considered a felony crime, right? Stalking was one of the most difficult crimes to report because the behavior to the average person seems harmless, but to the victim, it's terrorism. They show up everywhere you are. They may even use people that you know to make contact with you. And it's usually due to rejection of a relationship or the termination of a relationship where the stalking begins. And Jillian even mentioned being stalked, where the stalker seeks the attention of the victim, reconciliation, or retaliation through patterns of harassment, constant calling, text messaging, following, leaving flowers or other unwanted gifts. Also through triangulation, which is a part of that emotional manipulation app, where they recruit mutual acquaintances, family members, friends to coerce, threaten, offer, tempt, or convince or communicate with the target. So many don't necessarily see stalking as abuse, but the above information suggests that it is. In what other ways can stalking be abuse? What other ways can stalking be abusive? Let me put it like
That's
that.
petrifying.
Mhm.
I a long time ago. Long time ago over there.
All right now.
No. This guy wanted to date me, and we went on one date. And then the brother asked for another date, and I said, well, I'm busy. What are you doing? Oh, going to such and such beach with my girlfriends. You know, this fool was at the beach. I was petrified. I shouldn't say fool, this guy. I was really afraid. And so I think it's terrorism for sure. That was it. Everything was out there, no future dates or anything. But that was just a little, for people who are truly stalked, like seriously stalked, that I can only imagine. But that was just my little taste with it. And I didn't need to go any further with that.
Further down, would you like to
scary?
Yeah, look at your thing.
How stalking is abusive?
Right, in other ways, yeah.
Oh. I believe it's abusive to your mind, because a stalker is unpredictable.
Yeah.
You don't know what he or she
A bunch of she's.
Yes.
is going to do. Now, I brought up the she because you just never know what the person's going to do. And what it does is it forces you to alter your life and alter your movement in a way that you normally wouldn't move, because you got to deal with this, as she would call this, fool. Right? Number one. Number two, you have other family members that you become concerned about your family members. So there's a certain level of undue pressure that's placed on you psychologically because you have a potential enemy on your heels. And I mean, the crazier the person, the more pressure it is on your brain.
Right.
And in most cases, the stalker knows exactly what he or she is doing.
Right.
Basically, if I can't have you, then you can't have peace. And anything that robs you of your peace can be categorized as abusive.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else like to comment?
Ditto.
I had one short experience with stalking. I was in the grocery store at Walmart on my cell phone having a business discussion. And once I got off the phone, a gentleman said, "Hey, I noticed that you were in real estate. May I have your business card?" So I gave him my business card. And he began stalking me, calling me constantly, and I wouldn't take the phone calls because it was very inappropriate conversation. I realized this is not about business. But we have to be careful. We should think about stalking in another perspective as well. We freely hand out our business cards. So this dude was able to type in my number and locate me. He knew where I worked because I had my office address on my business card. So in that sense, we just be careful who we pass our information to. Because we really don't know. We're out trying to get some new business development, but we need to be careful. Because now they know how to locate us.
Yes, very true. It's real. No.
Okay. All right, so I think it was mentioned earlier where some women think that it's a compliment, proof that he cares, by being stalked via text, phone, or being followed. What do y'all thoughts? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Mr. Charlie.
Part of that also is not cute. It's not cute, but part of that also is, remember, as many have said already, control. So where are you right now? So that if you're there, I'm going over here, and you know, do what I'm always accusing you of doing. It's really, really mind manipulation.
I think that that's one of the major misconceptions that women have, particularly younger women. They don't know the difference between somebody being crazy about them and them just being crazy. I tell young sisters all the time, that black eye that he gave you, that doesn't mean he's crazy about you. It just means he is crazy. And it's sad that some of our sisters are in such a state of emotional turmoil that any kind of aggressive attention they receive, they see it as a good thing. And I think this is a problem that starts at home. Oftentimes it starts in their relationship with their father or the lack thereof. But there's an emptiness on the inside. They're trying so hard to fill the empty spot on the inside that they'll just put anything in it and even accept abuse in the process. So I think that that's something that needs to be addressed when we talk to our young girls. The difference between somebody trying to control you and somebody showing aggressive, I hate the word aggressive, but somebody showing strong love for you.
Would anyone else like to comment?
Well, I absolutely agree with Mr. Derrick. And also, I think, too, with the texting, that you have to be with me every minute of the day, you still have to understand that you can be an individual and still work in a relationship.
Right.
Because when he goes to work, goes to play pool, you need to be able to do something with yourself. There will be times when you have to be away from your honey bunny. You don't have to be hip to hip all the time. And I think that that's a myth. Well, I'm in a relationship now, so we have to be like this. No. Let him go do his thing. Let you go do something with the girls. Then y'all come together in the evening and talk about it. Again, false ideas about relationships. Because when that man leaves you, you still need to know who you are. You still need to have activities to do. God forbid the man passes away or whatever. You are still going to have to live. So the texting every 2 minutes, he showed up in my job unannounced, girl, it's cool. Some of that is a cute surprise, but when it happens often and you don't know about it, it may not be so cute. That's more the crazy end that we talked about. So I just think too is having these false myths of what a relationship is, this fairy tale stuff, and we have to be realistic. You are still gonna have to sometimes do things on your own. So.
One is still a whole number. I am complete. I'm complete. I don't need anybody to make me complete. I'm complete right now. And so I don't have to have someone attached to me I don't have a better half. My wholeness is the best.
No, I just wanted to say that from a male perspective, oftentimes if that man is over the top and trying to control you because he doesn't trust you, then there's a good chance that he himself is probably not trustworthy. Therefore, you don't owe him anything. If it takes you 20 minutes to drive from the supermarket home, and he texts you 5-10 times within a 20-minute span, he's thinking about what it is that's low down that he would be doing if he was making that drive. So anybody that's trying to control you on that level, you owe nothing to. And as a matter of fact, you need to make sure you put your bifocals on when you're dealing with somebody like that, because you may be dealing with an untrustworthy person who's trying to put off on you what he himself is probably doing. That's the male perspective.
Kelly, yeah.
Ditto.
Okay. All right. So, what should someone do if they are being stalked? What should they not do? Teresa?
Well, definitely statuses on Facebook, Instagram probably need to cease. I know that I check in a lot of times, but if you have a stalker, you probably don't want to put where you are, because he'll probably be there waiting for you. And then also, my big thing is tell someone, tell the police. If you don't feel like they heard you, if you feel like a protective order, get a protective order. If you don't feel like it works, continue to go back. At least those things are on file, and it can show a history, because I know some clients are like, oh, that order doesn't do nothing. It does when they look back and see that there's a history of that. If you don't say anything, it's kind of like the saying about if it's not written down, it didn't happen. Yeah, so make sure that you report it. Be safe. Think about your safety first.
Anyone else like to comment on that? Brother Darius?
It's ironic or interesting because just last Saturday we had a workshop on how we should deal with the police in our community. And the way you deal with a stalker is pretty much kind of parallel. First of all, if you have somebody that's stalking you, number one, take it seriously. That's number one. Your attitude, your disposition, and your approach to the situation makes all the difference in the world. Number two, do not be afraid. Because the more fearful you are, the more emboldened the stalker will become. Same with a police officer. Don't be afraid. Number three, as my sister said, be very, very careful not to publicize your surroundings. I mean, your location. I personally believe that should be the standard operating procedure, period. That, letting everybody know where you're going to be, exactly what time you're going to be on social media. I don't think that that's wise, because you may have a stalker and not even know it. But if this person persists in following you or texting you or whatever, you definitely have to let an authority know. Whether it's the police, your father, or whatever. Like I said, with the police, they can be stalkers sometimes too. So call the stalkers on the stalker. But I think that we have to find innovative ways to use these devices. I tell young brothers all the time, you get pulled over by a police officer, first thing you should do is get somebody on the phone. Put them on speakerphone. You have just effectively put somebody else in the car, a witness. So I think the same should be, it should be the same when you're dealing with someone who's trying to make you uncomfortable by following you. Always try to make certain that if somebody else is not with you, that you use that cell phone to alert folk and so on and so forth. Now, if I weren't to follow the Unblind Muhammad, I would tell you strap up. But I won't tell you that. But I won't tell you that.
Would anyone else like to comment? What should you do? What should you not do?
They said it.
Okay. So, what if the stalker and victim attend the same school, church, organization? How can the victim be protected? This is Charlene.
Somebody's got to move. Right? Two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. A lot of it depends. You know, the whole organization could disrupt. Sides chosen, who's right, who's wrong. I think it goes back to following the restraining order if you think it's necessary, protective order. A lot of times women have filed and have sure enough ended up dead. You know, that really sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't in certain cases, but when you're in an organization, you go through that protocol and seek protection, but at the end of the day, what really could happen? I think it all ends up in a legal situation. And a lot of it depends, just in my humble opinion, on just how emboldened the stalker is. You know, because I think to begin with, people who stalk are deranged. So what really is there to protect them? We've heard the cases of I mean, women have had to have, domestic violence survivors and victims have to have escape routes. I mean, really witness protection programs a lot of times. And so that's a good question. It's a good question.
Anyone else? What if the stalker and victim attend the same school, church, or organization? How can the victim be protected? Ms. Ellis.
I would agree with her. I think you have to put, as we say, paper in their lives. But I think you have to show patterns and things like that. So oftentimes, I know we as women, I don't know if it's out of embarrassment or what, but it's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, and then someone comes up hurt, and it's like, okay, you're going to spend more time than he would have because it was premeditated, things like that.
That's right.
I think it's important for us to know that piece of paper may not appear to be anything, but it is. And it's there for a reason, and I think we have to use it. But someone would have to not be at the school or at the church or whatever.
I agree.
Kelly.
And sometimes we can't change our situation, like, for instance, a school, and that's when we need to speak up, because the situation can escalate. But if you feel fear for your safety, for instance, you can't change churches. The opportunity to change your situation in order to protect yourself, go for it.
Yeah.
Always speak up, because the piece of paper is going to help, it's going to save somebody else's life. Because that piece of paper is in place, the next time someone reports this dude, they can see there is a history. So don't not speak up. Definitely do. Somebody has to start the process of documentation.
I also look at stalking as bullying.
It is.
You know, it's
Exactly what it is.
it's almost like the kid in school who bullies the smaller kid in school. When that smaller kid strikes back, and it doesn't have to be physical, it could be my mom came to the school, whatever. When that kid strikes back, it's almost like, oh, and then the bully kind of, sometimes the bully will leave because his job is to bully. He wants to, be that person, and I'm going to be the bigger person and this, that, and the other. But sometimes I think if we use the tools that we have that's in place, we use those to say, you will not bully me, then sometimes, not that it's going to happen, but I'm saying sometimes we freeze and it's like, I'm not going to do anything, I'll just stay in the house, or I just want to go to church. But you can't do that either. So I think, if we could look at it even as bullying, what do you do with a bully? You present what you have to present, and maybe the bully will stop.
Yeah. There's got to be accountability. And what I'm hearing everyone said is accountability. So back to that religious organization you said at school, there's policies and guidelines that have to be followed. I'm sure that there's a policy in every entity for someone who is affected. And 9 times out of 10, it wouldn't be the victim that would be the one forced to leave, but also most times the woman or the I don't want to say weaker, but the female usually has to make the harder choice. Like Kelly said, it's almost a run for your life situation.
Brother Derek?
I'll tell you how they used to do it in the hood, and I'm definitely not advising anybody to do it like this. But if somebody threatens you and you believe them to be serious, they had this little thing where the OGs tell you, go down to the police station and you file a report. Let them know so-and-so has threatened my life. I'm in fear for my life. I need to report this and get a restraining order against them. Sometimes, unfortunately, the guy will leave the police station, go find the guy, then kill him. And get off. Why? Because he put that paperwork in his life. It's a little trick that they used to do. I'm not advising anybody to do this. Let's make this clear. But I say that to say that documentation does beat conversation. Now, whatever organization, school, church, or whatever, as Sister Charlene has already stated, there should be some kind of guidelines there. So you go to the authority within the organization. Now, if it's a church, the stalker probably ain't gonna listen to them anyway because there's no enforcement strategy for such a thing in the church. I don't think, unless you got a spiritual stalker on your hands. You know, the preacher lay them hands on him. But if it doesn't work there, go to law enforcement. As my sister said, every tool in the toolbox,
Take it.
you use it. Every last one of them. And if at the end of the day, he or she still persists, then I think that it's not unwise to tell you to be prepared to defend yourself if you have to.
Right.
Now, there's a particulars, and I'll be brief. I dealt with a case once where a lady, I can't think of her name, rest her soul, she divorced her husband. And the husband kept coming around, begging for her, wanting her back. So what she would do is she gave him her garage door opener because he didn't have anywhere to stay. So he would sleep in her garage sometimes. But he would follow her around and so on and so forth. She thought it was cute. Well, her best friend didn't think it was so cute. So her best friend used to call HPD every time he did this. But HPD, they always brushed it off because when the police come to a situation and it's domestic, they're usually dismissive of it. Because they feel like, hey, this is emotional. They'll be back together tomorrow. I'm ready to get off work. That's pretty much how many of them handle it. So she decided to go on a cruise with her boyfriend. And her best friend had noticed that her ex-husband had been acting strange. So she called the police again. Did nothing. So she went and picked her friend up from the dock once she came back from her cruise. And she said, I'm having a real bad feeling about your ex-husband. She said that, I don't think you should stay in your home tonight. I think you should come with me. She said, oh, girl, please. He ain't going to bother nobody. And plus, I got my house locked up, you know, so on and so forth. She said, well, okay, I'll stay at your house. Just take me by the house so I'll get me some clothes. She said, okay. Went by the house. No cars out. The ex-husband's truck wasn't out there. So she went in the house. Went to the back to get her some clothes. So next thing you know, her friend heard a gasp. And she looked. Ex-husband was bringing his ex-wife out by the neck like this with a pistol pointed to her head.
Oh my God.
He brought her into the living room, shot her in the head. Shot her friend in the chest. She survived, thank God. And then he shot himself. I say all that to say, what I said from the jump, take it seriously. Take it seriously.
You know, you reminded me of a story. One of the women that works in the spa, she mentioned, and it seems like it was something every week, but she mentioned her sister who was leaving an abusive situation, and she left the house, and the police were gonna go back with her to get some items. And they said, well, we won't be able to go back until sometime after 5. And so she didn't want to wait. And so she thought that by taking 2 male friends, it would suffice. And so, similar to your story, they went to the home, didn't see any cars. And when they walked into the living room, he was sitting on the couch with a 12-gauge shotgun and a Glock.
Yeah.
And he told those 2 men that if they didn't leave, he was unleashing bullets, pretty much. He was going to shoot up the place. These 2 men left and left her. And before they got to the door, she was dead. You know, so, you know, it's not enough to have somebody with you, but to have the police there with you who knows how to go in and proceed with a situation like this, where instead you have people who don't know how to maneuver in a situation like that, or may be startled when they see a gun, versus a police officer or law enforcement that see guns all of the time and they work with guns all of the time. So with that being said, the resource that I have for stalking is stalkingawarenessmonth.org. They have handbooks for victims. They have this stalking journal so that you can document, you know, when this happens. It has the date, the location, the description of the situation, what you did, and then any witnesses. And so, as what has been said, documentation beats conversation. So it's a way for you to empower yourself if something like this is taking place. It has so much information on there, so many different downloads that you can utilize. There's also an app called Stalker Awareness. It's 99 cents. And it goes through the different types of stalkers. It has a way that you can contact emergency personnel. It has a fax and personal safety tips as well. So, this concludes our Turning Wounds into Wisdom, Women of Transformation Summit. So, I have some more giveaways. But we will not use the tickets. We're just going to give them away. Right here. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it after we conclude. I do have gifts for the panelists that here we go, my wonderful assistant. I want to give a shout out to my assistants today. Andrea, Darian, Rashida, Mohammed. And so, I want to thank each and every one of you that came out for this event. I hope that you were able to gain some knowledge, some information to equip yourself, to help you be a better support for someone, and to even bring about a healing for yourself. So with that being said, Brother Derek, you can give the closing words and close us out in prayer.
I don't know about you, but I've thoroughly enjoyed myself today.
Yes.
And I thank Sister Ebony Muhammad, A2H Magazine, all of the panelists, and all of the sponsors and supporters deserve a round of applause. Before we close out, I would like to call Sister Rashida and Sister Jamis, that's what I call her, they call her something else, up to the stage for a quick presentation, and we'll be brief and we'll let everybody go afterwards.
Hello, everyone. I know this was unexpected, but we have a gift for Sister Ebony Muhammad. For all of the work that she has done. We have a card and a set of flowers, just as a small token of our appreciation for your work and for putting on this wonderful event.
Thank you. Yeah, in closing, we would just like to say that I believe we can all agree that we have been given some cutting-edge information today. Some great tools of wisdom that we can use in order to not only make life better for ourselves, but for those who are in our families and in our communities who may be suffering from domestic violence, sexual assault, etc. I think the most beautiful thing that we did today was that we enunciated and highlighted the true value of women in the society, which is something that I believe is not done enough. So I think I want us to take that spirit back to our homes with us, back to our churches, our community organizations, and back to our families. But to the sisters who are here, who are present, if you don't remember anything else about today, is that see yourself the way God sees you. Know that you are a valuable jewel and that you belong in a jewelry box somewhere. Regardless of how someone else tries to treat you, particularly a man, always talk to yourself about how valuable you really are. And the more and more you talk to yourself, that value begins to take root in your subconscious mind. And when it takes root in your subconscious mind, nobody will be able to tell you different. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming out today. We love you. Walk tall, walk proud.